thanks to members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, President Biden's historic bipartisan infrastructure deal will now become the law of the land. And
looks like Biden's transportation secretary decided to come out of hiding from the supply chain crisis and inflation just long enough to crow about the victory Republicans just gave to Democrats. After Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell led about 19 Republican senators pass the so-called infrastructure bill, another 13 Republicans in the House under Kevin McCarthy just added their own stamp of approval. And this includes 2 members of the House GOP leadership team. This passage of this mammoth $1.2 trillion bill barely contains anything about infrastructure, as you know, and it instead spends billions on racial equity, whatever that means, environmental justice, again, whatever that means, and pilot programs for a mileage tax, which we all know what that does mean. It also paves the way for passing the even more massive reconciliation bill, which includes amnesty for illegals, massive IRS expansions to track bank accounts with more than 10 grand in them. It facilitates enforcement of OSHA's diabolical vaccine mandate, and it has corporate visa giveaways to replace American workers with cheap foreign replacements. Thanks, Republicans. Joining us now to discuss the GOP's next moves is Gavin, the president of the New York Young Republicans Club. Thanks for joining us tonight, Gavin.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So how much worse is it that GOP House leadership, like the New York Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis, helped to pass this slap in the face?
Oh, this is just a total betrayal, especially by a member of the so-called leadership, Nicole Maliotakis, who I think has some bogus title like deputy assistant whip or whatever. She's a first-term congresswoman, and Kevin McCarthy was already giving her titles to run with. But what good is a title if you can't even hold your caucus, or you can't even actually be a whip and keep your caucus in line? Because at the end of the day, this vote would have failed if these 13 Republican turncoats had held the line like the rest of the Republican conference and refused to vote for this bill. But instead, they decided to side with Nancy Pelosi, give Joe Biden his first major legislative victory, and now they paved the way for the end of single-family zoning in a place like Staten Island, which is massive. They paved the way for this horrible reconciliation bill. They paved the way for billions upon billions in wasted taxpayer funds, a mileage tax, and a whole slew of other progressive, woke, liberal agenda items. It's absolutely ridiculous that they would be duped by this. So either they're incompetent or they're just completely in bed with the Democrats. Neither option is great for them.
And what do you make of some of their excuses that we're hearing, for example, from Maliotakis and others? They go, but bridges and roads, that's what I voted for, and they try and pretend like no one else, that we don't see everything else that comes along with those bills. What do you make of those excuses that they're giving to their constituents that it's just infrastructure they voted for?
Less than 10% of this bill is going to actual infrastructure. And then even the infrastructure spending that is allotted for in this bill, it's going to be controlled by Democrats. Any notion that Staten Island, for example, is going to be the beneficiary of this money is completely naive and ridiculous. The Democrats who control the entire apparatus of state and city government here in New York will make sure that this money goes into their own pet projects. It's certainly not going to help the Republican bastion known as Staten Island. This is only going to lead to more bloat, to more waste. We have absolutely ridiculous costs for infrastructure projects due to, prevailing wages and a whole slew of other insane federal regulations, which should be addressed before it comes to an infrastructure vote. But it just goes to show that they're going to lie to their constituents because people like Nicole Maliotakis thinks that her constituents are stupid and that she can dupe them and that she can vote for this crap and still get elected to be their next representative. But I think she's in for a rude awakening that her constituents are not stupid. They're very smart. They know what's going on, and they know that what this is, and it's a betrayal.
I know, because we had Democrats in such a good place for us. I mean, we see Biden and Kamala's numbers are tanking completely. They didn't have any kind of legislative wins. They were made lame ducks, in essence. And that's why they went after so hard after Manchin and Sinema. And then here you have Republicans coming and saying, no, I'll help you. I'll help you before midterms. I can't even believe it. Is it time for us to get serious about primarying some of these Republicans come midterms and then 24?
No, this is a fantastic point. We're set to retake the House, retake seats in the Senate. We're going to have a massive revitalization of the party at the federal level. But what's most important is not just winning seats for people that have an R next to their name, but making sure the people that have an R next to their name are actually committed to an America First agenda. Many of these Republicans are not. They're completely relics of the past. They're relics of this old guard, neoliberal establishment that dominates the leadership of both parties. So we need to also purge our ranks of a lot of these turncoats, Nicole Maliotakis being one of them, the entire impeachment squad, and there's many others that even if they didn't vote for impeachment are certainly due to be removed from their office. I mean, you look at the Senate, we had 19 GOP senators go along with this. I mean, where is leadership? Where is Kevin McCarthy? Where is Mitch McConnell? Their job is to make sure the caucus marches in lockstep and votes all down in the same way as a party, as a unit, as a bloc. All this dissent, all these individuals breaking rank just go to show that there's no leadership at the top of the Republican Party, and it's all trickling down, and it's creating opportunities for the Democrats to snatch victories from the clutch of defeat. You mentioned in Virginia, New Jersey, all these upset wins, these numbers we weren't expecting. Even in New York City, we had some fantastic numbers down ballot, doubling the size of the Republican delegation in the city council. We had such a great night this past Tuesday. Why are we trying to ruin it with these cave-ins to the Democrats and to their progressive ideologies?
I guess you ask, where's McCarthy? I think it's because he's too busy with his sleepover still with Frank Luntz, perhaps, to control his caucus when everything goes on. And now you're going to see that this is just step one for Biden to get the rest of his quote unquote build back better great global reset plan, pass through. And then Republicans will still come for us, for wanting donations and vote for me so we can fight back against this socialist regime. And yet you look at their track records and so many of them are the ones who are actually greasing the skids for it to come to pass. So, it's time for us to wise up and start primarying them, as you were saying. Gavin, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.